How is this whole thing?
Oh, it's been crazy.
In a good way or a bad
Is
way?
in a bad way because my dad was really sick, and around a month ago he passed away.
Due
So
to
that's just
COVID?
been, yeah, he was really sick. So he was sick for a long time and he was in a lot of pain. So in one way, we're glad he's out of pain, but of course it's terrible not to have a dad. But yeah, that's what's been going on majorly for, and like just a lot of hospital stuff. And yeah, the year has
How
been
have you been
quite
coping with that?
well, hoping in the sense I've just been I have to work, and then I do whatever I usually do. I rest a lot whenever I can. And I mean, with the lupus as well, things have not been great because the entire stress that also sort of impacts me. But for me, I think majorly it comes from faith. Uh,
Yeah.
for me, and this has been actually since my lupus diagnosis, because before that I was my dad was a priest, so, and we have like a lot of theologians and priests and pastors in my family. But for me it was always okay, I go to church because I have to, and I'm interested in it in a sort of very academic way. But since my lupus, it became very personal to me, faith and God. So I think from there, it's always been sort of the center for me. And of course, it's not always smooth. Faith is not constant ever. And when these things happen, we question ourselves a lot. And especially for me recently, it's like I got a second diagnosis because we came to know that my kidneys are sort of 70% damaged because of the lupus. And then I was like, I was angry because I thought, okay, I've been doing so much on lupus advocacy, and then what is this my reward for all of that? And I was really angry and disappointed with God. But what I realized was there was so much of hope even in that diagnosis, because my doctor told me, you're doing really well. It's just this unseen thing that's happening. And the way I'm recovering, the way I'm doing okay, and the chances of getting to a very serious stage isn't that uh, terrifying. So for me, and also this whole process brought me again closer to God, because I think I'd become very confident about my health, and I'd forgotten uh, that need to sort of lean on my faith. So in a weird way, when I'm not doing well, I feel closer to God and more peaceful, which is a very strange thing to feel. But yeah, I think like through the suffering, I feel peaceful only because I know uh, that, I'm not alone in this spiritually. So yeah, that feels very comforting, even physically, emotionally, and mentally too.
So you think after this experience, you think that this experience has made you get closer to God or to have like a stronger faith? I think, Suzanne, if I was inflicted with something like that, as spiritual as I am right now, I think I'd just end up being nihilistic. I'd just lose all faith because I would see, you know, people being happy. So it's so inspiring that someone is going out there and like going and doing all of this volunteering, lupus walk, or um you have articles in like Bangalore Mirror and Deccan Herald and all of that. You're actually trying to help the underprivileged. You're like, in some way you're doing so much charity. How do you muster that up? Like what, why just not care about yourself and just be selfish? Why are you doing this for everyone else too?
Right. I think I can start by saying that it mostly starts from not taking credit for it. For example, being close to God didn't come from me seeking and finding. It wasn't something I won. So for me, the experience was something I received in that moment when I was in a lot of pain. And uh, it was a gift in a way, my faith. It wasn't something which I studied and earned, and I did a sort of what do you call those? I took a pilgrimage and I got closer to God. It wasn't like that. It just felt like a gift because it just came to me when I was at my weakest, and then that made me live. I really think like there was a time when I thought I wouldn't make it. So it was a gift. It was life. It was the gift of life. It was the gift of hope. All of that in one moment, and that has sort of sustained me for all of these things. And the reason why I think I even have the strength to do all of this stuff because, you're right. Like there are days when I'm literally in bed the whole day. I just can't get up. Like that's the amount of fatigue I feel. But somehow I'm able to do all of that because I even feel like it's not my own strength most of the times because it's really impossible when you think of the amount of fatigue that's there and like several things going on and like so many medications. So logically it doesn't make sense to do all of these things, but I feel like that sort of submission where you don't feel like you're responsible for your own strength, you're taking credit for all the things that you do and also the motive behind it. I think with lupus advocacy and after all of these, after my lupus, most of the things I do when it comes to community work, it hasn't been for myself. Like before I was very ambitious, like okay, if I do this, how is it going to connect to my portfolio or my future career options, or how am I going to gain, what am I going to gain out of this activity? So that sort of thinking kind of stopped because everything became a gift. Like the fact that I could speak, that sort of desire to do things just for your own self actually is very limiting. That's what I realized when I look back at the way I used to behave and the way I used to do things. So I think that's the leading force where I don't take uh, in the sense the credit for most of it, and for me it's mostly about the reason why I'm doing it, which is because of the strength I received. I need to, that's where I need to put. And sometimes it feels like, I have this task list given to me and accordingly I prioritize things. Like if there is a lupus thing that I need to do, and since that is my real, like that is what my purpose feels like, I do that and I give more importance to that, and somehow other things work out. It's very strange. So yeah, that I think that's where it comes from, like sort of placing all the power not in your own hands, but placing that in the hands of something which is bigger than you. Yeah.
This morning I went for a walk and I met my friend, and I think I've also been on the same journey of, putting my anecdotes or perspectives out in a way where, I can influence or help people. And he pointed something out and he was like, stop saying that I did this, I did that. There's nothing that you're doing. It's all a greater power or a greater force. When you start, using the I word there, you become very selfish and you stop becoming selfless.
That you said was how you just stopped being selfish anymore. How did that come about? Like how did that transition happen? Because we're all trying to learn from you because we're very inspired by you. So what advice could you give somebody on how to make that shift, from selfishness to
Right.
selflessness?
I think I'm sorry. And I just have a sip of water. I just choked a bit. So yeah, I think we can never really be free of selfishness as long as we're alive and we're human, and it is a way we preserve ourselves and we sustain our lives. So but in the way I was speaking in terms of giving your time and your energy to things that are not just to elevate your status, so in that way I think it all boils down to love. Like what is the most important thing in your life? Is it the love of people? Is it you loving people? So I think that really removes all of these you know these really extremely self-driven things in our lives. Because when I was really ill, what I realized was everything, all of my skills and my abilities, even the smallest physical task that I could do, I couldn't do anymore, and I needed help from the people who loved me. and I needed the people who love me to be with me. And that was the most precious thing that it could ever boil down to. And from that I realized the most fulfilling thing that I could also do was to love other people. And this was an incredible like realization for me, because I realized the more I loved God, the more I loved people around me too. And I wasn't isolating myself because I loved God, and that was not at all what it was to be close to God. That's what I realized. And then uh, and this translated to so many things, because when you love people, you care about things that matter to them, right? You care about their health, you care about um, their well-being, you care about so many things. And it's not just a small community you start caring about, you care about larger things that impact so many people. And that's where I think larger causes also come into the picture, where you sort of give your energies to these things. And personally for me, it was all about love, like all these divine inspiration and divine experiences, it all boiled down to like how I could love people and how I let people love me. So I think selfishness is tackled only with love. Change is also tackled only with love, because I've always been a very political person. And whenever I have debates, I used to have a lot of debates, whether online, offline. And what I realized was, to really change people's minds, or to really uh, inspire them to do things with you, or to be inspired yourself, you really need to love them, like, and be real friends with people. So that is what I feel removes selfishness in the way we understand it, the egoistic kind of selfishness.
How would you say we can love freely? Because I think I have a problem with loving freely. Like, sure, I throw the word love around many times. I'm like, the world needs more love, the world needs more peace. And I think I'm still working on that. I'm still very young. I'm still trying to understand that. But I think in some way, shape, or form, I'm still a little scared, because I feel like if I give too much, what if people don't give too much back? So the way you're describing is that you're just giving it like relentlessly. You're not caring of what it is, whatever. I'm just like, you're just as expressive as you can with love. Like, how do you love freely?
Yeah, it's a very tricky question. I mean, I know it comes across as very preachy when you sort of say love one another. I mean,
You don't sound
what does it
patronizing,
even
by the way.
mean?
That's one thing. Like every time we make these videos, you don't sound patronizing or preachy in any way. You're just like, you're just another person sharing.
No, I'm glad you said that. But it is true, like, throwing around things like love people, it is a difficult thing to understand. And I'm not even claiming to understand all of it, because I have my moments when it's so difficult to love people. But when I mean, to answer your question of what do you mean, like, how do we love, right? And being scared to love people because it necessarily may not be respected or accepted or returned. So the way I think of it is, it's not so much about expressing it than it is about the way you feel inside. Like, um, for example, if you love a community, let's say I love the lupus community, whomever I come in contact with, right? And it doesn't mean that I talk to each and every one of them at every opportunity, or I am like all the time available or anything. That's not the way I think of it as love. But it is the desire to be able to do something for the community. Like, it doesn't have to always be expressed to a single person. And I feel like that sort of love is, I think it's more about you, like how you feel that love rather than how you express it to them, while it is still important to express it to them. And it is something I'm exploring as well. But what I feel is, uh, and this was a lot stronger when I was not well, when I was much sicker. And it's a difficult question to answer, but it was like I was not inhibited to love people anymore. Like, I wasn't scared of them not loving me back. So it was more about the quality of my love that changed, not so much about whom I'm reaching out to, whether I'm getting back love or I'm expressing or I'm communicating with them, but it was about the quality of my love. And it was a lot more peaceful. It wasn't it wasn't anxious. It wasn't like expecting them to do things. So it was more of love people you don't even really need to expect things from them. I know this sounds again really
Absolutely. It
tacky,
was
but
completely selfless kind of love, which frees you itself.
yeah, but then again, all love can't be selfless, that's for sure. Like, for example, if you love your family, if you love your friends, you do expect them to love you back. And I truly believe that no human love is unconditional. And but what I feel is, the way I talk about love is how you feel it. That's all I can say. It's the quality of your love that changes, and it is not inhibited by fear of not being loved back, and just that anxiety has gone away. That's what I feel.
Yeah, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. Like, at least if I try to love, I just do not want an ego to come in between. But we're gonna move from that right now, and I wanted to ask you about your song "Lockdown" and
Oh,
some and some covers and some jams you've put on your channel. You're really good at strumming and playing the guitar. You have a fantastic voice as well. Do you think music is healing in some way? And what do you think is your purpose of being a musician?
well, definitely, I've grown up with music, so it's very, very integral to me in different
Top three
aspects.
favorite. Wait, sorry to stop you. Top three favorite artists till
Oh, my
now.
top three favorite. Oh, this is so difficult. It keeps changing,
I know,
but
I
I
know.
think
That's why I had to ask you the trickiest question ever.
my God. And yeah, it really varies. So Arctic Monkeys is
Hmm.
one like extremely
Hmm.
top favorite, and then BTS on the other spectrum.
Oh, K-pop, you've gone off to the other side of the world on the.
Yes, I'm
Okay,
very.
then.
And then that's the difficult part. I think the third one, I really can't say.
One.
Just
Just
leave
one.
that
It's changing,
blank.
right?
I don't wanna do it, huh?
The one that keeps changing.
Yeah, that's the X, the variable in the list. So I
Alright,
feel like I'm doing
very nice.
injustice. Yeah.
Okay, cool. You can continue now. No more tricky questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were asking me about music, right? And how, like, what it means to me and all. So I was saying it's a very integral part of my life in different aspects. One thing is, I think it's a very free flowing art form to me, because it's the easiest thing to do for me. It's easier than writing as well. So and it's the it yeah it's easy for me, and it's also like when I'm really feeling deeply, I think that's the first way in which I'm able to express it, whether I'm heartbroken or I'm really happy, or those deeper aspects of me, which I sometimes can't make sense of. It is easily sort of expressed by writing a song or by performing a song. So in that way, it comes to me very naturally, and that's what I'm really grateful for, that I'm able to live with music and not just receive it as a listener. I'm also able to sort of let it express through me. That is one aspect of it, and there's also the healing aspect, which is through the sound itself. And I'm saying this because when I was really ill, music actually physically healed me, is what I felt. And I would like lie down and then listen to music, and a lot of times I didn't need painkillers because of that. And that was really strange to me, and I started reading up about, is sound therapy even valid? And then I found out that the ancient pyramids were actually, one theory says that they were actually places where sound therapy was used to heal people because of the way sounds hit the various levels of the pyramid. So that was really interesting, and that made me believe that it's very much true to heal yourself physically with sound. That was one aspect, and then the other thing is, with writing and on the more commercial side of things, it would be great to one day have my songs out there and have an audience listening to it and stuff. But it's a lot of hard work. And the problem with me is I like too many things. I don't know what to give myself to at a certain point of time. So right now I'm just dabbling with different things. And Lockdown was my first official music video for my own song. Haven't done much yet in terms of distributing it and promoting it, but I'd like to.
Very nice.
Um,
Yeah,
So, like you said, you're doing so many things. You wrote a book when you were in school, I think, called Facebook Phantom.
Facebook Phantom. I was a
Yeah.
fan of it.
Command over the language and the creativity, and more than that, the discipline that it takes to sit down and write a book and at that age, is so commendable. So, what can you take us through your journey of having written that book, and like what inspired you to write that book at that age?
Yeah, I think at that time, I mean, the title suggests Facebook Phantom, so it had a lot to do with Facebook. And that was the time when it was coming up, and we were all very excited with this new social media platform. So one part of it was the mystery of it, because you're just starting off, and you're getting like random friend requests, and you're accepting them. It was such a naive time. So yeah, all of that built up the mystery within me, and I was always fascinated with paranormal fiction. And then there was Twilight. I was a huge Twilight fan. So I wanted to sort of yeah, I'm still a fan. Okay.
We
I
all
wanted
are.
to sort of merge. Okay, great. Merge all of these, like mystery and just the things that I like doing. And I wrote the book. I didn't even plan to publish it. It was just like something I did. And then I sent it to two friends to just, read it and tell me what you think. And then they were like, you have to send it to a publisher. So I randomly sent it to like 6 publishers, and then one of them got back. So yeah, that was the journey of how it became a book. And in terms of what inspired me, yeah, there was a lot of social media, and yeah, it was. I think I also wanted to really explore, teenage relationships, and I'm still fascinated by it. The dynamics of growing up, and having all these different tensions with friendship, with love, and like discovering your desires. And I think that sort of growing up drama is something I really enjoyed. I still enjoy writing about. So yeah.
Right. And do you have plans of writing any more books?
Yeah, actually, in fact, the older I grow, the less confident I become, strangely. So I have written a sequel to Facebook Phantom, which is not out yet. And then
Oh
I'm also
no, how long did it take
simultaneously.
you? How could you do
Yeah,
that
I
to
know.
me? How could you do that to
I
me,
know, it's
Suzzane?
terrible.
Not
It's
fair,
like
dude. You kept me like
about
that
10 years.
waiting.
Then yours.
When did you write it?
It's written, it's I'm just like redrafting it and re-looking at it. So that is one. But I've also started another writing project, I mean another book, which is more it's about the son of the angel of death. And it's very it's got a lot of angel myth and the underworld and those sort of things. So
You.
I can't believe I'm actually talking to an author. It's like so fascinating. We're talking about the books that you're writing.
yeah, I do hope one of them would come out soon.
Please.
Yeah, college took a huge toll on me, so I couldn't really, like, my course was very intensive, which is great. Like, I love the course, but
What courses?
yeah, that sort of that was communication studies at Mount Carmel College. So that was very
From
consuming.
Mounts
And
too. Did you do your PhD?
oh, you're from Mounts as well.
Yeah. Did you do your
Oh, that's so
PhD?
nice.
I did my PhD.
PUC and degree as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, we would
Oh,
all.
you did your PUC in Mounts, is it?
Yeah. Just my PhD.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Writer for as long as I can remember. Now I've started writing a book, but I do not get the inspiration sometimes. Sometimes, the words are just like flying, and the other day, the next day, I'll just be like, the man. And I think,
Yeah.
so how do you do that? Like, what's your thing? Do you just go at it when you're writing? Even if you have
So
that
there are
creative
very
block?
different. Sorry,
Even when you have
I
like a
didn't catch the
creative
last.
block?
Okay, that. Yeah, so I feel like there are different ways in which I write different kinds of pieces. So for example, I started writing a lot of non-fiction pieces after college and even during college. And I feel the way my mind works with those things is very different from how I write fiction. And I think in a way, both of it are conflicting as well. So right now my creative space is inhibited by my more rational kind of writing, which is necessarily not the case. Like there are many writers who are great at both at the same time. So I think that's my personal journey as well, where I need to sort of balance these two. But when it comes to creative writing, I think for me, one thing good is to sort of block out um, too many influences of other sort of literature, art, any sort of entertainment, because that it might not be the same for everyone, but for
No
me,
regurgitating.
there's a need to like go inside of my head to be able to create. And the more I watch Netflix or TV or whatever, it's difficult for me to be creative with fiction. But on the other hand, the more I'm exposed to content, material, entertainment, and news and all of that, it's easier for me to write nonfiction and opinion pieces and those things. So it really, I think the balance is to figure out what works for you, what triggers creativity in a sense, or what hinders it, more importantly. So if you feel like consuming more content helps you write better, then that could be your thing. But in my case, it is not the case with fiction alone. So yeah, it depends on what you're writing and what inspires that type of writing, I would say. And when it comes to creative block and writer's block, that is absolutely there a lot of times.
Oh, it's
And even
painful actually.
it's really painful, I know. And yeah, and but the thing is, it depends on how you write as well. For example, in the sense how you build your story. Do you build your story by planning ahead? So there is this line which in an interview Neil Gaiman said, like there are two types of writers. One is the architect, one is the gardener. The gardener sort of just grows their plants and the story sort of grows along with the writing. So there is no
I think I'm
master
definitely
plan.
the gardener.
The gardener, yeah, there is no master plan or blueprint
No,
that you
no,
sort
no,
of
no
build on.
architecture, nothing. Some intense
Exactly.
life event will happen. I'll be like, you I have to go start immediately. I'll start. And it's almost like it's writing is like the most perfect. By the way, Prarthana writes as well. She's a beautiful writer, and
Great.
she just told this to me like 3 weeks back,
Oh,
and
I'd
she
love to
shared some
read
of her views.
both of your writings. Yeah.
Thank you so much. When we finally publish books, Suzzane, you're our guide and you're our mentor. Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you.
Lovely.
You have to help us through that process because we don't know anything.
No, nobody knows, really. Nobody knows. In fact,
Sounds
even
eyeballing
Neil Gaiman says the second draft is just for you to realize what the hell you wrote in the first draft.
Oh my
So that is
God.
true in my case too.
So during the
Yeah.
editing time, like it'll just be like when you have to change it, is it tough?
Not really. Like, I think there's a lot of tweaking. Like, there are multiple edits you do by yourself to get the
Mm,
story right in your head. And then
mm,
there is a different type of editing when it goes to a publisher. That's when they sort of, but nobody, publishers don't enforce changes. They always suggest changes. So that is
mm.
how editorials work, and that is a very nice way to work. So you still have absolute freedom in your work.
Wow. Pratna, I cut you off that time. Sorry.
shift to perhaps something I was wondering, where lupus predominantly affects women, right? And as a young girl, a certain sense of our identity, I feel, is definitely impacted by the way that we look physically. And a few of the
Absolutely.
side effects of lupus are weight gain, skin discoloration, and hair fall. Um, so, how have you coped with this? And what advice would you be able to give young girls in general based on your experience with the way that we view ourselves physically?
Yeah, that's a very good question because I'm also asked of it often by patient communities. And yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing to realize is that the treatment and the course is more important than temporary appearances, and to be very sure that it is temporary and that your healing is more important at that stage. None of it is permanent, like the way your look changes during certain therapy. It is not permanent, but it's going to last for a long time. So I think that acceptance, that complete submission to the treatment course is very important. And it is almost spiritual, that level of submission to your treatment and your course and those medications, because even though it's all scientific and evidence based, you need to accept that medication with your mind and your body. That is how it's going to work its course well. So I think a lot of people who are in denial about their treatment and, who are constantly challenging it, tend to sort of dwell on the symptoms and the side effects more than the healing process. And that's not healthy at all. And I'm not saying they'll heal lesser or heal slower, but it's definitely not going to be an easy process. It's only going to get harder if you don't accept and submit yourself to that treatment. So I think it's important to understand that the course needs to run, and that it's temporary, but it's really difficult. It's important to address it when you're going through that. Like you mentioned, lupus medications are it's a whole range of medications. So one part of it is steroid treatment, which causes most of the symptoms you just mentioned, like weight gain, skin bruises, hair falling off, hair becoming terrible. Like there's so many things, and our face completely changes. Like I was unrecognizable for a couple of months. So and then there's chemotherapy, which destroys you and makes you a zombie. And there are like so many other medications as well, depending on which organ is affected. So all of these things are going to change the way you look and change the way you feel about yourself. But then do realize that this treatment is going to save your life, and your life is always more important than how you look. So to deal with how you look, I think one thing is also to focus on your nutrition and to focus on body products that make you feel good, even though you feel like you don't look your best. It's important to smell the way you like to, and these things are important, to live with yourself and to eat good things, so that those things, and just be creative about your health. I think that's also important. Like most people constantly look to a professional to tell them each and everything, but I think being very aware of our own bodies is important. Like for example, the things that make me feel nutritious, the things that make me feel alive are very different from what makes someone else alive. But leave the medical treatment to the professionals. But the other things that you can be creative about in your life, I think with the journey of well-being and especially dealing with side effects of medication, it's very important to care about your nutrition and the way you take care of yourself.
What are the life lessons that you've learned through this journey of battling lupus, and what are the things that come into focus? What are the things that fade out, just generally as a survivor, or as just like to another person as a friend? What would you say was the most significant thing?
Well, there are so many things that have happened since lupus. It's like I've lived like 10 years in 2 years. That's how I feel. The amount of changes that have happened, the different ways of thinking that have settled in. I think one thing important, very important, that I've gained from all of this is to learn how to keep your spirit and your energy protected, but also free. How to keep it, how to not feel trapped by anything. And I think that's very important, because as a person, I'm extremely sensitive to energy. If there are people around that drain me, I'd get physically, mentally, emotionally drained. Or if there are certain things on my mind that drain me, like it all comes crashing down very easily for me. So I think in that way, liberating myself from anything that's toxic, that feels like a trap, has been something which I've learned a lot, whether through my faith or whether through the way I think or the way I feel. So I think that's one life lesson, if I could call it that. I don't know, these grand statements are a bit scary, so I don't really know how to uh, uh, title them, whether they are fit to be life lessons. But I think protecting your energy and liberating yourself constantly is very important, because uh, the mind and the body are one. And that is so true. I've known that every step of the way. And the mind, spirit, body, I feel they're all like interchangeable at any point. So that is important. Liberate it, protect it consistently. And the other thing is, and don't feel afraid to make boundaries. I think that is something that has saved a lot of my energy and my well-being. So boundaries with people, boundaries with your own self about the things you're going to do and the things you can't do. I think that's very important for your liberation. And that is one thing. And the other thing is, I think, I would say find that thing which grounds you and centers you. It could be faith, or it could be family, or it could be a lover, or it could be anything. But more or less, it's important to make it something that's very consistent. And ground yourself in something where you can come back to, and where it feels like it's a constant security for you. So find that center. And keep coming back to it, and it will never be the same as well. For example, faith will always change, people will always change, but have that center, whatever it is. That is another thing.
Such
Wow.
Well,
We
like,
call this Gyaan,
eye-opening.
and we just got Gyaan.
Oh, I don't like to sound like I'm giving Gyaan, but
No, not at all. Oh, trust. Like every day when you wake up, how do you think you see life differently from the Suzzane before Lupus, and from the Suzzane who's experienced everything and has had all these trials? And I'd also add something to that. It's a little deep question, but how or what is death to you? Like, have you made peace with the concept of death? Have you accepted it? And like, what all of that? I just like my perspective on it.
Well, I mean, I just want to respond to what you said first, because I think that's a great gift to have that choice. Because for people, a lot of people with chronic illness and even with lupus, I think the most heartbreaking thing is the limiting of choices. Because every decision you make, you have to weigh in so many things. Is it going to be beneficial to your health? Are you going to have the energy for that today? So the choice of waking up and saying, this is what I'm going to be, this is what I'm going to do, is a gift. And you should definitely not feel terrible for feeling that. And I think that's I want to start with that. And that's exactly what I feel has changed for me before and after lupus. And the choice of being able to take any decision freely without fear is something that I still grieve about for myself. And that is still hard, how much ever however well I am, those things are still limiting for me extremely. So, but then what I feel is, at the end of the day, sometimes it's very frustrating when I want to make any decision. But I realize that, my life as a gift that has been given, and this feeling of living a second life is a beautiful feeling. And that is the reminder that keeps me going, because I haven't lost myself. My mind is intact, which is my most precious ability, and my most precious gift in a way. And my health is also going well. So I count these things that I have, and I just give thanks for being alive. I think that sort of saves me from all those frustrations when I can't make choices, or when I'm afraid to make choices, I'm afraid to do something. I realize that I have life, and that is extremely comforting. And I mean, it takes a lot to come in terms with the fact that death is easier for someone like me. For example, let's say I don't take meds for 10 days. That's going to be life-threatening for me. And every single thing is much more threatening with, catching a infection because my immunity is suppressed all the time. So those things there are so many things that could easily result in death. But I think this is where you again don't take credit for your own life, and you don't give yourself credit for surviving, because there are so many invisible things that could kill you anytime. But I'm here, even though the odds are the odds are against me, I'm still here. So I think that's where putting that power of my life is also not with me is very liberating. And I am very fulfilled. I feel like I live a very fulfilling life. And to me, the idea of death it's always scary, because more than fearing for my soul or the afterlife, I feel sad to think about my consciousness going away. And for death, any person dying, that's what I grieve about, that their consciousness is lost, and their souls are not in my power, but I would miss them as a person, as a consciousness. So that is something I think about when it comes to death. But I would say I'm not afraid, to be honest. And I feel like even if the odds are against me, I feel very much protected. And but I would do everything I can to sustain myself, because I have to respect the gift of life that I have. That's pretty
Wow.
much it.
What advice would you give to anyone suffering from lupus right now?
I think it's important to go through the process of grieving for yourself, feeling all of those things, being disappointed, being angry, but also always arrive at the point where you know that the only way to heal is to accept it, and not just accept it, but really embrace it. Like for me, lupus is like a constant companion. It's not an enemy that's at my throat. It's something that I'm nurturing so that it remains healthy and doesn't flare up. So it's a companion that you have to live with it your whole life, and you can't live with someone whom you're constantly fighting with or you're constantly in conflict with. So embrace it, I would say. But that's not easy. It's not at all easy. So go through all of those emotions of grief. You have to grieve for yourself, because a lot of you will be gone. A lot of you will be you can't live the way you were. Everything changes. That's the truth. So grieve if you must, but also realize that this companion is easier to live with when it is not triggered or it is not in conflict with you. So embrace it like any other thing in your life. Everybody has something or the other that's gonna threaten them, or that's going to hurt them deeply. So this is the challenge that you have faced. So make it your companion, and I think you'll go a long way with lupus.
It's like such a beautiful energy from you, Suzzane. Like honestly, like I could feel the radiance. I'm also gonna go a little metaphysical here, but I could feel your radiance, and I'm sure Prarthana as well. And I like really admire your strength and your resilience. And I know for a fact you have it inside you to be like a survivor. You're not even giving yourself a chance. Like you're just like you have that surviving mindset. It makes my problems like look so insignificant when I just cry about them.
So I'm reading this book, Suzzane, and it's called Being Loved. And
Okay.
it speaks so much about how much your energy and your vibrations have to do with the way that you attract people. And so I feel like there is so much that has happened in my life and so many good things that have got me to this point where I could have this conversation with you, because honestly, I could just feel the energy and the goodness, and I'm so grateful to have had this conversation, honestly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Us. You made us better from before and after the conversation.
Yeah. Like I literally feel like I'm like, see, this is the problem with Gyanis, no? You need someone to give you Gyan.
I can't keep talking.
Yeah, we can't keep talking. We need someone, we need the Gyan from somewhere.
And I love the energy too. So it was just so wonderful talking with you guys. I think a lot of what I said also came from, what you gave me. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.